Wall Street has always been a sanctuary for predators. Men in bespoke suits who legally steal from the working class and hide behind complex algorithms and shell corporations. We expect them to be greedy. We expect them to be ruthless. But we also expect them to hide. We expect them to have the basic human decency to feel shame when they are caught. But what happens when the predator doesn't hide? What happens when a sociopath steps out of the shadows, holds a dying patient's life for ransom, and instead of apologizing, he looks directly into the camera and smiles? Welcome to the Ledger. This is the story of a man who tried to put a price tag on human survival and the devastating cost of playing God. Before he became the most hated man in America, Martin Shkreli was just another hungry kid from Brooklyn staring at the monolithic towers of Manhattan. But while other kids played video games, Martin treated the global stock market as his personal arcade. He was a prodigy of destruction. In his 20s, he launched a hedge fund with a singular, parasitic strategy, short-selling biotech companies. He didn't build anything. He placed massive bets that companies developing life-saving drugs would fail. And when their clinical trials collapsed, he bathed in the blood money. He was a financial vulture, circling the sick and the dying, getting rich off the failure of modern medicine. But betting on failure wasn't enough to feed his colossal ego. He didn't just want to predict the market. He wanted to control it. He wanted to hold the levers of life and death in his own hands. So, he transitioned from a mere gambler to an owner. He founded Turing Pharmaceuticals, a company with no interest in actual scientific research. Their business model was a masterclass in legal extortion. Find a rare, life-saving drug that only a small, desperate group of people needed, buy the exclusive rights to it, and trap the patients in a corner where they had absolutely no way out. The trap was sprung in August 2015. The target was a drug called Daraprim. It wasn't a new, experimental miracle cure. It was a 62-year-old medication. But for a very specific group of people, pregnant women, cancer patients, and those suffering from HIV/AIDS, Daraprim was the only thing standing between them and a horrific, agonizing death from parasitic infection. It was their lifeline. For decades, the pill cost about $13.50. It was affordable. It was accessible. But the moment Shkreli's signature dried on the acquisition contract, that lifeline was brutally severed. Overnight, without a single change to the drug's formula, the price of Daraprim was violently hijacked. From $13.50 to $750 per pill, a staggering, mind-numbing increase of over 5,000%. It was an act of pure, unadulterated financial terrorism. Patients who relied on the drug to survive suddenly found themselves facing astronomical pharmacy bills they could never hope to pay. Hospitals panicked. Charities went bankrupt trying to cover the costs. Shkreli had taken a fire extinguisher in a burning building and decided to charge the burning victims $1,000 per spray. The public outrage was instantaneous and explosive. Doctors pleaded for mercy. Politicians from across the spectrum condemned the move as sickening. The media painted him as a monster. In the face of such overwhelming, universal hatred, a normal corporate executive would have hired a crisis PR firm, apologized, and lowered the price to save their reputation. But Martin Shkreli was not normal. He was intoxicated by the infamy. He didn't back down. He leaned into the villainy. Instead of retreating into the shadows, he embarked on a bizarre, antagonistic media tour. He live-streamed himself playing chess and strumming a guitar in his luxurious apartment, while patients across the country were literally begging for their lives. He picked fights on Twitter. He called journalists morons. He even purchased the sole, one-of-a-kind copy of a legendary Wu-Tang Clan album for $2 million, just to prove to the world that he could. He was flaunting his blood money in the faces of the people he was extorting. He treated the very real, life or death suffering of thousands of people as nothing more than a highly amusing reality show where he was the star. The defining moment of his grotesque hubris came when he was dragged before the United States Congress. Lawmakers demanded answers. They demanded to know how he could justify bankrupting dying Americans. Shkreli sat before them, invoked his Fifth Amendment right to remain silent, and spent the entire hearing visibly rolling his eyes and smirking at the politicians. He looked at the highest authorities in the land with the exact same utter contempt he had for his patients. He truly believed he was the smartest guy in the room. He believed he was completely, undeniably untouchable. But the irony of the American justice system is often found in the fine print. Raising the price of a life-saving drug by 5,000% was incredibly evil, but legally, it wasn't a crime. The FBI couldn't touch him for Daraprim. But a man who operates with that level of sociopathic arrogance always leaves a trail of financial wreckage behind him. Investigators dug into his past and discovered that before he was the Pharma Bro, he was running his hedge funds like a classic Ponzi scheme, lying to his wealthy investors, forging documents, and moving millions around to cover his catastrophic trading losses. He didn't get arrested for hurting the poor and the sick. He got arrested because he dared to steal from the rich. The trial violently shattered the illusion of the boy genius. Stripped of his internet trolls and his media circus, he was forced to sit in a cold, silent federal courtroom and listen as his own investors and former colleagues testified against his endless web of lies. When the guilty verdict was finally read, the infamous Smirk instantly vanished. At his sentencing, the arrogant sociopath broke down. He cried. He begged the judge for leniency, claiming he had made mistakes. But the court had seen his true face. He was sentenced to 7 years in federal prison, and the government seized over $7 million in assets, including his prized Wu-Tang Clan album. Martin Shkreli became a cautionary tale, a dark stain on the ledger of the pharmaceutical industry. He exposed a terrifying flaw in the system, that the health and survival of millions are completely at the mercy of unregulated corporate greed. He went to prison, but the system that allowed him to weaponize a life-saving pill remains largely unchanged. The Pharma Bro was locked away, but the dark, beating heart of Wall Street simply kept on ticking, waiting for the next predator to step out of the shadows. The ledger remains open.